Hi, I'm Lisa Fletcher, and you're in the stream. Today, is Europe about to welcome a new state? We turn to Spain to examine Catalonia's increasingly popular separatist movement. As always, our digital producer, Malika Bilal, is handling all your live feedback as it comes in during the show. And Malika, based on what I've been seeing, a lot of online support for Catalonia separating from Spain. What are you hearing from the community?
Exactly. Many of our community members are showing support for separation from Spain, and they're talking about things like cultural identity and language. Now, of course, on the other side, we have some tweets saying that this is a selfish move. So for those of you at home, we want you to weigh in on that conversation, join the conversation using the hashtag AJStream.
And to Malika's right is Clara Ponsati. She is a visiting professor of economics at Georgetown University. She is also a research professor at the Institute of Economic Analysis in Barcelona. Clara, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Is there a story in your community that you think we should cover? You can tell us all about it by just getting in touch directly with our team. Go to stream.aljazeera.com/about, and there you'll see the Twitter handles of all of our team members. We always welcome your story ideas. And here are some of the hashtags related to our topic today. Catalan flags covered the streets of Barcelona as Catalans celebrated their National Day last week, staging the largest pro-independence march in the region's history. It wasn't always like this, though. In the past, pro-separation marches drew no more than 50,000 people. But this time, an estimated 1.5 million marched peacefully and called for Catalonia to be Europe's newest independent state. Now, most Catalans have traditionally favored greater autonomy over complete separation, but the latest opinion polls show half of Catalonia supports secession from Spain.
Catalonia wants to be a new state in Europe because we want to do exactly the same that all other European countries do. We want to make our own laws. We want to defend our interests in Europe. We want to defend our language and our culture, which are different from Spanish ones. And we want to manage our own taxes and our own money and decide which investments are best for our country.
Catalans say their region gives more in taxes to the Spanish government than it gets in return. They also complain of reduced investment in the region's infrastructure. On September 20th, coming up this week, Artur Mas, the Catalan leader, is set to meet with Spain's prime minister and present the fiscal agreement, which gives the region powers to levy taxes and decide what percentage should be given to the Spanish central government. If talks fail, Mas says Catalonia's way to freedom is open. So, will Catalonia succeed in separating from Spain? Is it their right to seek independence and self-determination, or are they turning their backs on Spain now that times are tough? To help us answer some of these questions, we're joined from Barcelona by Alfred Bosch. He is a Catalan politician and member of the Spanish Parliament. He was the spokesman for the Barcelona Decides platform, which organized a referendum on independence in 2011. We are also joined via Skype from Toronto by Carles Muntaner. He is a professor at the School of Medicine at the University of Toronto. He's originally from Barcelona. Professor Muntaner is concerned that Catalan separation will come at the expense of an already weak welfare state. Alfred and Carlos, welcome to the stream.
Well, welcome. I'm actually in the School of Nursing and also Public Health. Well, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Alfred Bosch, I want to start with you. Since 2006, the Catalan region has been declared by the central government as a nation within Spain. It also has judicial autonomy. It has language rights. So why do they want out? Is it just economics?
No, it's not just about money. By the way, hello, Lisa, good night. It's dark pitch night here in Barcelona right now. But no, it's not just about money. Although money is in the picture as well. It happens almost all the time, right? There is like a sense of grievance because out of the amount of taxes that Catalans pay to Spain, only half of that ever returns for hospitals, welfare in general, services, schools, trains, etc. So we believe that we've been subsidizing Spain for 35 years in a figure which would be more or less double of what Europe has also given to Spain for development over the last 35 years. So double of cohesion funds, of all the money that Europe has been injecting into the Spanish economy for developing it. We have given it internally to the Spanish state. We have paid the bills. So now we think it's unfair that this would go on forever and ever, especially when we feel the pinch of the crisis. And that is also something which encourages us to ask for more freedom and for more responsibility.
So, Clara, that sounds like an economic argument. Is that what is at the root of the discontent here?
I think that the economic discontent is a symptom, is not the illness. The illness is the lack of the Spanish state the lack of ability to organize politically as a really federal state. But it's true that the symptom is this this fiscal deficit that shows that from the central government they are the ones that collect the taxes and they return the taxes to the autonomous communities, with the exception of the Basque Country and Navarra. So, this control of the monies turns, out in a lot of discretionality. The government can spend this money, as the central government can spend this money the way they wish. And it turns out that for some reason, the history is not that they have wished to spend it, in infrastructure and other expenses in Catalonia. This is more visible now because we're undergoing, severe budget cuts. And and the people of Catalonia and in Spain, both everywhere, are feeling these cuts, and this is extremely painful. And people are more aware of that. But this is not the only reason for Catalan claims to independence. I mean, it's mostly a political problem that has an economic side.
Well, speaking of feeling that pain, Carlos, we asked our community what they thought of this issue. Francesca on Twitter says, I am Catalan and my culture and identity have nothing to do with the Spanish ones, and I want the world to acknowledge it. On the other side, you have the economic argument from Emir, who says the economic argument only reinforces the historic, cultural, and linguistic reasons for secession from Spain. So, Carlos, I'd like your thoughts on whether all of those reasons put together is enough.
I think they are correct. It's a combination of culture, economic, and political institutions. And it, as we know, it goes way back from centuries. And for example, National Day, which is the 11th of September, is the day that commemorates the fight of Catalans that they lost with the Bourbon king, which now ruling Spain, as you know. So many Catalans not only have a national identity that's Catalan, but also reject the monarchy, and they are implicitly Republican. And for a while during the Spanish Civil War, Catalonia was independent. However, I would like to say that that being said, my point and discussion is that I don't trust the Convergència i Unió, which is a right-wing government now in Catalonia and has been about 25 years since the democracy was reinstated in Catalonia, in charge, to go ahead with this agenda. I think it's not sincere. It's a way of channel the discontent in part due to the economic crisis. And that I don't think even that looking at the ruling class of Catalonia in the last century from Cambó on, really they are independentists actually. I think they are more like federalists because of their ties with Spain. So that's a tool that they're trying to use to bargain with Spain, right? But the stakes are very high because now they have a huge deficit, so that's why they are willing to go an extra step. But I don't really trust Mas to be independentist at all.
Alfred, does Catalonia have a right to separate from Spain?
Sorry, I can't hear you well. If it has something to separate?
Does Catalonia have a right to separate from Spain?
Well, we are a nation. So in that sense, with the language, with the history, We even have our own charter which says that we are a nation, and that was voted and approved by the Catalan parliament, the Catalans themselves. So we believe, yes, we have the same right that any other nation. We're not more than any other country, but we're not less than any other country. So the demonstration which we saw the other day, and you're probably seeing in shots all the time, was basically about this, about nationhood, about the right to decide, about democracy, about democratic rights, and the right to vote on our future. Now, we think we should be independent. Let's hold the vote. That's all we're saying. Let's hold the vote. That's what any democracy in the world would do, but that's what the Spanish government will not allow. And that's what our struggle right now is about. We are trying to follow the democratic path, and if we decide to be independent, we have all the right in the world to be so. That's what you call free determination, and the US knows a lot about this, and most of the countries in the world, in the modern world, know perfectly well what that means, because 150 of modern countries in the world have been independent, have become independent in the last century.
Well, Clara, a right to free determination, but Violeta says at the end, what Catalans are asking for is a referendum that will show people's will, which is illegal in democratic Spain. And I'd like to add that Violeta is one of the people that brought this story first to our attention and asked us to cover it. So would a referendum even be allowed?
Well, it's true that it's not legal in the present, under the present constitution, but this only shows that the present constitution is not the tool we need right now for democracy in Spain. It doesn't mean that this is not a right. I mean, it's clear that when a people, expresses its will to vote and decide, there is no constitution, no democratic constitution that can stop that.
And speaking of voting to decide, there's a video comment here. Carlos, have a listen to this.
I'm Miquel Strubel. I live in Barcelona, and my family and I went to the huge March for Independence organised by the Catalan National Assembly. For centuries, Catalans have been past masters at losing wars against kings and generals who want us to be like our Castilian neighbours. But only in freedom do we think we can survive as a people. Our tradition is both European and democratic, and surveys show a clear majority willing to vote yes in a referendum on independence.
So Carlos, he says a clear majority is willing to vote yes.
I co-authored with him many years ago when I was at the Autonomous. Well, that's a position of nationalism, the historical argument, but I think that this, even if one can agree with everything he said, the short-term reality is that the beneficiary of this march, in my view, unfortunately, will be mass. And what does mass represent, and what does his political objective? In my view, his objective is not independence, is continue to use the goal of his party as a party that plays into the interclassist idea that we are all a single group, to bargain with Spain. But at the same time, the reforms and the cuts that he's doing are very much neoliberal. And in the past 23 years, he's voted all the time with the neo-fascists of the PP. I mean, I call them neo-fascists because they come from Franco, and they are staffed with people who build their careers under Franco, even their founder, right? So I think here that's a problem for those that in a very, would say, idealistic way have let themselves be led by Convergència i Unió.
Clara, I'm curious, do you think that the hopes for economic recovery here are going to be enhanced if Catalonia separates from Spain?
I think these are two different things. I mean, the short-run recovery of our economic situation, it's not directly linked to independence. And it's not clear that there is a short-run recovery anyway. But we're not thinking of separation because there is a hope that this will solve, the economic crisis. I think these are two things that are, they have coincided in time, and it's not by chance that they have coincided in time. But at this point, the Spanish government with the Catalan government have to work out policies to help to get through the crisis, and at the same time, they have to work out, a political situation to this claim for independence. These are two different things. They both have to be dealt with, both at the same time. Both are important. trying to say one is more important than the other is not going to get us out of the hole. And these are related things, and we have to, we have many problems, and we have to face them all.
Alfred, who, if anybody, has laid out a platform for Catalonia's independence?
Well, we have with my own party and coalition. So yes, we have a plan. We think that obviously politicians now in power, like Carles Montaner was saying, have their own agenda, even perhaps their own hidden agenda. But the fact is, last Tuesday, millions of Catalans went to the streets asking for freedom and asking for dignity and asking for nationhood. So we'll try to respond to that. We'll try to respond to that because obviously there is an economic background, and we feel that the fall of Spain, this Spanish fall, is also giving out Catalan spring. Out of the Spanish fall comes out a Catalan spring. Now, this Catalan spring, which you might understand in different ways, is the making of a nation. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing which affects economics, it affects morale, it affects politics, it affects everything. We think that's a positive driving force. It's not negative. We're not hating anybody. We don't have any particular enemy. We're just trying to build something new, a new nation in the making. And that also can give hopes to most Catalan people that through this new energy and this common goal, we can reach a different economic situation, our welfare can improve, etc., etc. We think this is a whole project of renewal and of hope for the future.
Well, I'd like to give the view from the other side, showing how split our community is. This is a tweet from Not Barney, who says, "Don't remember that 49.9% oppose this." Now, on the other hand, you have a tweet here from...
No, that's not true.
Go ahead.
It's not true that 49.5 oppose this. The polls show that 51% would vote yes in a referendum and 21% would not no. The other 20-something% are thinking about it. So this is the important people. Well, okay, everybody's important, but these people that are thinking about it, one side and the other have to convince them. Nevertheless, there is, we'll see who, we need to know who's the majority. But it's not true that there's a 49% against.
Well, one of the people that are still thinking about it is Johnson, who says, autonomy is not a solution. It will make Catalonia more vulnerable. And I'd like to direct this to you, Carlos. There's a video comment. Have a listen.
Hello. My name is Dr. Robert Crane. I live in Paris, France. And my question would be, why not, within the structure of the European Union, allow regions such as Catalonia to become independent regions with voting rights within the European Union? I feel it would be safer for everyone, and everyone could express their national feelings. Thank you.
So presumably for this to happen, if Catalonia was to become independent, it would have to then reapply for membership into the EU, correct?
Yes, Catalonia.
It's not correct.
Let's give Carlos a chance to respond, and then you can jump in.
Idea of future challenge the undemocratic nature of the European Union, as the euro was created on the backs in Spain and Catalonia of the common people. So challenge the neoliberal, German-dominated, financial-dominated project that now is ruling Europe and is hurting the countries that have the strongest tradition of inequality, namely Spain, Portugal, and Greece, and Catalonia as part of them. That would be a welcome future. Now, I think that unfortunately what's going to happen is that we're going to have Convergencia y Unió use this spontaneous grassroots movement like the Asamblea Nacional de Catalunya to get them voting to a majority government, and then continue their game of playing mediator with Madrid, and at the same time go on with their privatization cuts that are investigated for conflicts of interest constantly in the press. You can check it, they arrest journalists.
Claire, I want you to jump in because you had an immediate reaction to this.
Yes, it's not true. It's unclear what the European Union would do, or would Catalonia need to reapply? Would be excluded? This is unclear.
Wouldn't the member nations have to vote, though, to allow Catalonia
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we are members of the Union
as part of Spain?
As citizens of the Union. We have our rights as such. Therefore, we will defend them if necessary. The reasonable thing is that these things are negotiated in a collaborative way. We need to get Europe out of the crisis. We need to get Europe forward, and the creation of a new state is nothing against Europe. On the contrary, I totally agree with Mr. Bosch. This is a positive movement. I believe very firmly that a Catalan state in the southern edge of Europe would contribute a lot to stability and to prosperity.
Speaking of Mr. Bosch, I know, Alfred, that you want to jump in, so jump in.
Yes. Yes, please, Lisa. Let me just make a comparison. It's true, we are European citizens. We have the citizenship of Europe. Now, can they deprive us of that? Let's make the comparison with US citizens. Imagine the people in Northern California decide to separate from California and to have their own state. Do you think the US would kick them out as US American citizens? I think that parallel could give you an answer. Would such a government, federal government or the European government, dare to kick out people who up to then have been citizens of Europe? In the remotest of my imagination, I can't believe they would dare to do that. It would go against Europe, against democratic principles, against what Europe actually means, what has been in the foundation, the creation of the European Union itself.
All right, so I'm going to ask all of our guests to hold their thoughts, because we're going to continue this conversation in our online post show, and I want to get to the point of whether or not any of our guests think it's possible that Spain and Catalonia can work together and resolve this internally. But before we get to the post show, we want to get to Malika, because she's got some other story leads that we're following.
It's been 1 year since protesters, fed up with social inequalities, took to Wall Street for what would become the Occupy movement. To mark the anniversary, activists like Molly Crabapple, who tweeted this picture, returned to New York streets using the hashtag S17, or September 17th. Crabapple, a political cartoonist, was detained by police but managed to live tweet her arrest. Everyone in the van was just yanked off the sidewalk. Police ordered to just start grabbing. She added, while we were being put into the van, a suit grinned and told the cops, nice work. The hashtag Free Molly Crabapple soon garnered more than 1,000 mentions. Our next lead looks at a hashtag that trended worldwide, but probably not for the reason its originators intended. Newsweek magazine tweeted this image of its latest cover with an article by Somali-born Dutch politician Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's previously generated controversy for her criticism of Islam. Newsweek asked readers to discuss the story using their headline, Muslim Rage, as a hashtag. Angry netizens did just that, using humor and sarcasm to critique the magazine. Imagine the Newsweek cover with any other minority. Would the ignorant and inflammatory stereotyping pass the editorial board, Aisha asks? Well, we rounded up some of the conversation around this story at stream.aljazeera.com. Head there for more images and tweets, like this one from Deanna. Now I remember why I canceled my subscription. Hashtag Newsweek. Well, if you'd like to join that conversation, tweet us at hashtag AJStream. Lisa?
All right, stay with us, because the post show is next at stream.aljazeera.com. And if you're going to join us for the post show, I want you to think about this. Is it possible for Spain and Catalonia to unify and work together as one nation and not have Catalonia separate? So tweet us your thoughts on that right now. And on Tuesday, we're going to talk about sexual violence against Native American women. Did you know that 1 in 3 Native women report being a victim? We're going to try to get to the bottom of why their attackers are not being prosecuted. Till then, we'll see you online. Welcome back to the Stream's online post show. We're going to pick up right where we left off. We're talking about, is it possible for Catalonia to remain part of Spain and for everybody to get their piece of the pie, everything that everybody wants. I want to read you something, Clara, because there have been suggestions that this should be talked through. This is part of a statement from Spain's Vice Prime Minister reacting to the President of Catalonia's defense of a Catalan state. And she says, from the government, we appeal to moderation and responsibility. In moments of economic crisis, stability and confidence are a must. Right now, it is the moment to face the crisis, and we all will get ahead better, all together in an atmosphere of collaboration. What do you think about that statement? Is she right?
I couldn't agree more. You know, we need to be moderate, and we need to generate confidence, and we need to work out together, absolutely. But this doesn't mean that we cannot do it as two different states. I firmly believe that Spain and Catalonia have to work out together to get over, you know, to contribute to a new prosperity in Europe. This doesn't mean, you know, that they are giving any answer for dialogue. You know, this is an empty statement coming from the Vice President. This is, you know, sending empty statements after a demonstration of, you know, 1.5 million, almost 2 million people. This is not moderate. This is not responsible.
Alfred, there's speculation that the
government, now independentist, and the PP, the Francoist party that rules Spain, are very much in agreement with the basics, right? They both want to get rid of the welfare state that was so hardly won, or the remnants of it that Spaniards have, like privatizing healthcare, cuts in education, and so on. So in that sense, I think that they work very well together, and have been working very well in the last 30 years by supporting each other in the Spanish parliament. In fact, Convergencia, for all its concern about Catalan people, were very much likely to support the PP in major legislations. Mm-hmm. Now, how independence plays into that, I think it's possible, but it has to be through the acknowledgement of the universal right of self-determination of people and a different kind of majority in Catalonia, one that would link together, I would say, progressive forces center-left, like the Parti Québécois here in Quebec, for example. Definitely not with the neoliberal Convergencia Union.
Well, Alfred, there's a tweet here from Global Voices Català who says the fiscal crisis is a separate but parallel issue to Catalonia's status as a nation, and it should be noted that Global Voices has done a lot on this issue on their blog site, globalvoices.com. But I'd like you to weigh in on that. Is this separate from other issues, and does that all strengthen this cause?
Well, let's see. You got Spain with around 800 billion euros GNP. And around 800 billion euros, rough figures, excluding Catalonia, 800 billion euros debt. You got Catalonia with 200 billion euros GNP and only 40 billion euros debt. So in the case of Spain, 800 out of 800, it's 100% debt. In the case of Catalonia, 40 out of 200, 20% debt. Catalonia is a wealthy nation. It's been prosperous. Its economy is like the powerhouse of Spain. So the fact that we've been paying the bills of Spain in the past 35 years is kind of natural if you come to think about it, but it's unnatural if you think that it's been eternalized. So any aid which is eternalized stops being a workable, functional aid.
Hey,
and
Alfred,
that's what we're complaining about. Despite the fact,
I'm sorry.
Despite this fact, no solution has been found.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just curious. How confident are you that Catalonia can remain economically robust if it separates from Spain, given that a lot of major industry that is in Catalonia may not be comfortable being in a small state away from Spain?
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm arguing about. It's a sound economy. It's 30% of exports, and of imports within Spain. So Catalonia would not have any problem to have a sound, workable economy. The problem would probably be a Spanish problem. So right now, Catalonia could work as well or as bad as countries like Holland, Denmark, Switzerland, with similar populations, similar economies. And it's very diversified also, so we don't see a problem there. The main problem, the real problem, down the line, the problem is that Spain doesn't allow Catalans to vote about their future. And that's it. That's the end of the line. If Spain lets Catalans vote about their future, as any mature democracy would do, then Catalans would decide by themselves. Anybody who doesn't understand that point, that self-determination is the matter, it's the question, probably has a problem understanding democracy itself.
Well, Carlos, Alfred mentioned sound economy. There are members of our community here that disagree with that. This is Clara, and she says if Catalonia was to become independent, she says the richer would get richer. The privatization of all public services would leave people stranded. We are scared. Is there an argument to say that there's been mismanagement on the part of Catalonian officials?
In the last 30 years that we had Convergència i Unió, we've been how Catalonia, for example, has public spending as proportion of its GDP, say compared to Sweden, that's 27%, Spain is 17.5%. It's even lower than Spain as a whole. And in fact, in healthcare, for example, if we, again, talking about data from around 2000, before the crisis, Sweden has 8% of health expenditure as a proportion of its GDP, and Catalonia is not even 5%, and it's below Spain. So this so-called independentist party that rules Catalonia has done everything possible to erode the well-being of Catalonia during those years. That's my point.
Okay,
so
got it.
They cannot be trusted.
Got it. So, Clara, Alfred Bosch was making the point that Catalonia is very economically robust. So given that, you can understand why Spain wouldn't want to lose its third largest economic hub. The logical extension of that is, what is Spain doing to keep Catalonia happy?
That's exactly the point. I mean, Spain has had 30 years of democracy to work this out, and it seems that we haven't worked it out. So there were attempts to reform the Catalan Statute. Those were ended in a catastrophic failure, and so there is really not much out we can try. I mean, of course we can continue talking, but we cannot continue talking without making progress forever, and that's what the average citizen in Catalonia is discovering, that there is no way we can just stay as we are. We need to move forward with that. So that says, it's true that in the short run, Catalonia's separation from Spain may harm the Spanish economy. That's certainly true in the short run. In the medium term, I don't see why this should be so bad. Spain desperately needs to reform itself, desperately needs to, modernize itself in terms of its public administration, Spain and Catalonia, both. We need to modernize ourselves in our institution and in our public administrations. Our judiciary system is not an appropriate judiciary system for a democratic and modern country. So all these things will get a much better chance if we get into a new transition.
Right.
Spain gets started over, and Catalonia as well.
All right. Our thanks to Clara Ponsati, Alfred Bosch, and Carles Muntaner for joining us today. Now, on Tuesday, we're going to talk about sexual violence against Native American women. 1 in 3 Native American women reports being a victim. So the question is, why is the legal system failing to prosecute their attackers? Send us your thoughts and your comments on that. Go to our website, click the video link, send us a video question. Until then, we'll see you online.